Simon's my name, God's my game. I hope you're doing okay today. We certainly seem to be running a very long marathon during this lockdown. Anyway, today we celebrate St. George's Day, especially if you're English. And so might I encourage us all, though, today to not only celebrate the day, but celebrate St. George. Let's first be clear who St. George was, maybe a bit of history, and then finishing with a reason to celebrate St. George. He lived in the 3rd century AD and grew up in a Christian family in Cappadocia, that's now central Turkey. After his father died, he moved to Palestine, the homeland of his mother. And there, in time, he became a Roman soldier and rose up the ranks and became a senior officer in the Roman army. Things turned for the worse for George when Emperor Diocletian decreed a terrible persecution against all Christians. George refused to execute Christians, and so he resigned his post. He tore up the emperor's orders. Probably not the best idea, of course, but he stood up for innocent victims and oppressed people, and he was soon arrested, imprisoned, and tortured. George stayed true to his faith as a follower of Jesus Christ and was sentenced to be executed. The date of the execution was the 23rd of April. We have celebrated St. George for many centuries now, but in 1222 the Council of Oxford adopted St. George's Day as the 23rd of April. In the 14th century, the red cross on a white background became English battle dress. And it was in 1415 at the Battle of Agincourt when King Henry V inspired the troops. Cry God for England, Harry and St. George. And in that battle the English were outnumbered at Agincourt, but they still won. And so after that battle St. George was made England's patron saint. George has been the saint and inspired the English at all crucial times in history, as long as the English have been English, in fact. And we celebrate that today. St. George also stood up for the poor and the vulnerable and the oppressed. He stood up to bullies, and of course we celebrate that fact today. St. George also showed us that good things can come from the worst of times. Today, in this difficult of times in our own country, and I'm sure lots of you have had plans wrecked, relationships under strain, and there might just be a little bit of stress from working from home. There is much uncertainty, but from St. George, let us not be downhearted. This time will end. Good things will come from the worst of times. Indeed, we'll look back on these days and see some of the good things. Not least, let's think of all those lovely, new, fresh, clean and transparent seas and the wildlife coming closer to beaches. We even had dolphins in Lulworth Cove, I'm told, last week. And so today, may we be inspired by St. George. And so let's cry God for UK, for our world, for the NHS, for biomedical scientists, for key workers, and for St. George. Have a great day.